That's a lovely song on a Saturday afternoon. That was Kungs. And before that, I can't remember who played before that, but I like that one as well. You are listening to MGR My Greek Radio, the UK's #1 Greek music station, and this is Suddenly and Unexpectedly with me, Kyriakos. I've taken over the show because we want to talk to people. We want to talk to local businesses and reconnect them with their clients. We want to see what they've been up to, and we want to get back to some sort of normality after the pandemic and after lockdown and all of that sort of thing. So joining me now is Nino Cafaro. Nino, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And you work for Moreland and
Co Solicitors.
Moreland Co Solicitors, just like Danny.
That's right.
Just like Danny. But obviously, Danny was talking about some different sectors of Moreland. What's your particular?
So I deal with the exciting topic of death and taxes.
Oh dear.
I'm a private client lawyer.
Oh dear, I better play some happy music then. So tell us a bit about yourself, first of all.
Well, I had a bit of an unusual route into law. I started life as an accountant, and
So did I.
really, yeah. Well, the intention was always to move into law, and then I got married, had kids, and they needed feeding every day. So I pushed back the law career for a while, and I went into financial services.
Okay.
For about 10 years, I had my own business in financial services, and then in around 2005. The itch got too irresistible to scratch, and I went back to university.
Yep.
Did a law degree part time, and then moved into law. So I was in the city for a while, and then I moved into the care sector, advising around mental capacity, and cognitive impairment.
Yep.
And then again back in the city, heading a team at the Wills and Probate team at the firm there, and then in the last year and a half, I've been at Moreland Co Solicitors.
I see. So tell us about what your actual role in Moreland and Co. What sort of specific? So you deal in.
So I deal with. I mean, the initial touch point with clients is usually wills, lasting powers of attorney. So planning for eventually when they die.
Yep.
Also putting some provisions in place for protections if they were to lose capacity, being able to make their decisions. They can appoint people to make those decisions for them. And then, of course, right the way through to tax planning. No one wants to pay inheritance tax when they die. Unfortunately, it's unless you plan, it's an inevitability. So we do a lot of work around that tax advice. And then, of course, ultimately, when people die, we offer probate services. But in addition to that, I do contentious probate cases as well. So, so unfortunately, when it comes to, people often think that divorce is the grittiest area of law. It's probably not. It's contentious probate when people die and there's money up for grabs.
I mean, I know a lot of people say planning is boring, but it's well, for me, I'm a planning type of person, but planning is probably the most important thing. I mean, I always tell my kids, get your wills done, even though you haven't got nothing. Even though you haven't got nothing, just make a will. Get your pension sorted out. I know you're really young and what have you, but you don't want to be scratching around when you're in your 60s trying to sort this stuff out. This should be, but I mean, it's important, right?
Absolutely right. Look, the youngest person I've done a will for was 18, and
wow.
And that's the youngest age you can do a will.
Yeah.
Right the way up to people changing their wills later on. I think the oldest person I did a will for that had never done a will was just under 90, which I think is staggering because that the person made it so that age anyway. That's great, but to not have anything in place. People put it off because they tend to think that writing a will invites the Grim Reaper, but the reality is once people talk about it and they get it down on paper, sign it, it's in the drawer, then they're quite relieved that they've got.
It's peace of mind, right?
Yeah, absolutely, because the inevitably we deal with a lot of people that haven't done wills, no provisions in place, they die, and then of course it's the laws in place that decide where your assets go, and they're subject to change obviously at any time, but getting it down on paper, at least you've made the decision, subject to them being challenged, then the assets go where you want them to. But beyond that, it's about making sure that most of the assets and the wealth that you've built up over your lifetime goes to those you love, rather than 40% of it to the taxman.
I mean, do you think people find it? I don't know. Do you think people are scared of making wills? Or do you think there's that morbid undertone for them personally, and they don't want to think about it? They want to bury their head in the sand, and they just don't want to know. And like, you're thinking, well, you just get it sorted and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, look, everyone's going to die, and so absolutely. You could put it off as much as you want to in terms of planning, but it's happening, so best to get something in place as soon as possible. And the truth is, once you've done a will, you're not in prison, you can change it. So the first one, as with everything, is always the hardest, but the pandemic has really changed the way people are thinking. It's shifted people's thought process around planning, because in the past, certainly pre-COVID, I saw that people would think, well, I'm too young to die, I'm too young to put provisions in place, I've got at least another 30, 40, 50 years. I think what the pandemic has done is that it's brought death at an earlier age closer to people's thinking, to the forefront of people's minds, and I'm seeing a shift in the ages that people are planning. Now people are coming 30, 40, 50, and getting something in place, and it could be that they have, they bereaved themselves, someone in their family has passed away, parents maybe, from COVID, and it's just got people thinking. I do think that the lockdown and the whole pandemic thing has got people thinking about things. I mean, we've had time to think for the first time in a lot of years. I've worked in the city for 20 years, 25 years, so the lockdown was a chance for me to just step out of the rat race, just for, we thought a few months, but obviously 2 years. But it gives you that time to think and take stock of A, your life, and B, where you want to be, and C, how you've, planned things, and if you've planned things. Do you think people have changed? Actually, you said that people have changed their attitudes, don't you think? Since COVID, yeah. I suppose during COVID, and when I saw the increasing inquiries, I thought back that people tend to always ask where people, why they've called me, or what's made them make this decision to start planning. And people often say, well, I went to see my mum and dad at Christmas. I haven't seen him for about a year, and and I saw that dad was, car keys were in the fridge, and the trifle was in the boot of the car, and they could see that there was some sort of shift in those behavioural patterns, and it made them think, well, I need to get something in place for my mum and dad. But of course, being at home and seeing the death numbers ticking up on TV night after night, it's brought it closer to home, and so I think that's I've seen that as a real massive change pre-post COVID.
Absolutely, and I think you touched upon it earlier when you mentioned things like power of attorneys. Now I know there's been a massive increase in awareness with mental illnesses, and mental health has been a buzzword for like past 2 or 3 years now. The amount of people talking about it and the exposure it's got has had huge the past couple of years. Have you seen an increase in people applying for powers of attorney? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, the court of protection gets probably around 3,000 applications a week. Wow.
And so one thing that actually there was a real trigger point in the last couple of years. I don't think there's enough awareness around mental capacity generally. People tend to always think of dementia. And as harsh as it sounds, I always say, forget dementia, think cancer, think COVID, think car crash. It could be anything that could lead to a loss of memory, whether that's temporary, long term. But one of the things that really got people talking about it was a TV presenter called Kate Garraway, who I'd never heard of. And then suddenly the phone started ringing off the hook, and people were saying, I want to do a lasting power of attorney. And again, I'd ask where the thought came from to call, and they said, well, I saw this woman on TV, Kate Garraway, and her husband Derek. And of course, then when I got home, my wife and kids told me who Kate Garraway was, and it's these kind of things are really important to for people to understand that it can happen to anybody. I mean, this chap was a young guy. I think he was 50 something. His life changed forever.
That's right.
And so as they had their finances tied up together, and as a consequence of his illness, banks froze. or certainly restricted access to money, and that was it. Devastating for her and the family.
Of course, that's very poignant documentary. If you haven't watched it, that was Kate Garraway. She was the newsreader, obviously, on TV, and her husband Derek. So if people want to get hold of you, how would they get hold of you? Get phone numbers, email addresses?
Well, they can reach me at Moreland Coast Listers, obviously. I've got a YouTube channel, Talk Legal with Nino, where I give little bite-sized tips.
I know what I'm doing tonight.
I just try to keep it fun and stuff in terms of spreading awareness around the legal areas that I specialise in. And of course, again, I'm happy to give my mobile out like Danny did, 07841 162 780.
That is awesome. Nino, thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you for spending your Saturday afternoon with us. Keep it locked here. You are listening to MGR My Greek Radio. What have we got coming up? We've got some One Direction coming up next. Keep it locked here.
Broadcasting live online.
MGR, the Greek voice of London.